When I go into schools to share the message of Jesus, I often ask for a child to volunteer to come up to the front. All the hands shoot up, and faced with a sea of faces, I dread picking out the class bully. The other children hate to see the one who makes their life a misery getting all the attention. When Jesus passed through the town of Jericho, he knew that of all the people living there, the one who least deserved his attention was Zacchaeus. I'm so glad to have this opportunity for a few minutes now to look at a story again many of us know from our childhood. If you want to follow this story of Zacchaeus, you'll find it in Luke chapter 19, verses 1 to 10. Zacchaeus was the town bully. Luke 19 verse 2 tells us that he was the chief tax collector and that he was wealthy. Now, tax collectors were renowned for corruption. They took money off their own people and passed it on to the occupying Roman government. And they charged a bit of interest, exorbitant interest really, in the process. Zacchaeus had pocketed the proceeds of these dodgy deals and built a personal fortune. Now, Jesus knows all that, but still he picks Zacchaeus. And sure enough, there's grumbling. Luke 19 verse 7, all the people saw this and began to mutter, Jesus has gone to be the guest of a sinner. And they were absolutely right. Zacchaeus was an abusive con man. He deserved the title sinner. But while the crowd thinks that associating with sinners is a bad thing, Jesus sees the likes of Zacchaeus as exactly the kind of person he has come to earth to associate with. Verse 10 explains it all. For the Son of Man, says Jesus, came to seek and to save what was lost. I've got three simple headings as we go through this story to see what good news this is. 1. Zacchaeus was lost. He was rich. Does that sound like a lost person to you? Many people feel lost without wealth. But at the same time, we all know that money doesn't make people lastingly happy. So perhaps Zacchaeus felt the emptiness of wealth. Maybe he was love-starved. After all, enemies came with his job. But then again, even bad men can enjoy loving families and close friends. Perhaps he had a guilty conscience. He certainly should have done. But of course, he may have become so good at ignoring his conscience that it didn't bother him anymore. So the fact is that we don't know what was going on in Zacchaeus' inner life that day. If he had moments when life seemed empty and colourless, when he realised that death and judgment would one day catch up with him, we could identify with him. Feelings of frustration, boredom and fear, they're universal. But there is no indication that Zacchaeus felt lost in any way that day. All we are told is that he was lost, but that after he met Jesus, he was found. The point is that he was lost because he had not yet met Jesus, whom God sent to search out lost people. So in other words, being lost is more than a feeling. It might or might not be a feeling. But at bottom, it's a fact. Without Jesus, human beings are lost from the God who made them. Many people know that they're lost and they long to be found. You might be one of those people. Other people don't realise they're lost and they resent the very suggestion. We don't know fully what motivated Zacchaeus to seek Jesus out that day. All we know for sure is that he was curious. Luke 19 verse 3, he wanted to see who Jesus was. And the tree was an ideal vantage point. It was a good view for a short man, but far enough away to feel comfortable. Comfortable, that is, until verse 5. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." We're ready for our second heading. Zacchaeus was lost. Second, Jesus sought him. See, curiosity got much more than it bargained for. Suddenly, Zacchaeus is on the spot with a decision to make in front of a stunned crowd. Perhaps you've faced a similar crisis moment with Jesus. See, on the one hand, it's a massive honour. Jesus, the biggest news to hit Jericho. He wants to know me. But on the other hand, it must have been very unnerving. Jesus knows my name. And if he knows my name, he must know other things as well. My lies, my dodgy deals, my ill-gained fortune. And Jesus' tone is unnerving. He commands, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." After all, who's doing whom the favour here? Jesus is trying to get invited to Zacchaeus' house, but Jesus is calling the shots. But most unnerving of all is the way Jesus demands an instant response. "Come down immediately. I'm coming today." See, Jesus thrusts himself into Zacchaeus' life and takes charge. And sure enough, when he comes to people today, he doesn't present himself as an easygoing spiritual advisor. He walks in as the new management. Of course, we shouldn't be surprised. After all, lost people don't have the luxury of deciding how or when they will be rescued. Just think of, you've probably seen clips in films or on the news of rescue men dangling from helicopters over the waves during a rescue at sea. They give orders. They take charge. No, it's not because they're mean or power crazy. It's because the lost are in such a helpless position that they need their rescuer to take control. Has Jesus summoned you? Perhaps it happened a long time ago. He often does it while you're listening to a message just like this. The preacher seems to be talking to you alone. You think, how does he know those things about me? He doesn't. But Jesus does, and Jesus is summoning you. You're rooted to the spot. He might be doing that to you now, wherever you're watching. See, when Jesus addresses you, it is unnerving. Zacchaeus understands. 1,000 reasons flood into our mind why we shouldn't come down the tree, but Jesus insists, do it today. So you may not have a tomorrow, and you'll never regret it. That leads us to our third heading. Zacchaeus was lost, Jesus sought him, and third, Zacchaeus was found. Notice the joy. Luke 19 verse 6, Zacchaeus came down at once and welcomed him gladly. Notice the revolution in lifestyle. Verse 8, but Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half my possessions to the poor, and if I've cheated anyone out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." If you had told him at breakfast that morning that by bedtime he would have slashed his personal fortune, yet gone to bed happier than ever, he would never have believed you. But that is the joy millions of people have discovered the moment Jesus found them. Zacchaeus was lost, Jesus sought him, Zacchaeus was found. Now we have to return to a question that's been hanging over us from the beginning. Why give the town bully of all people a break like this? It's because changing a greedy man into a generous man in the space of 5 minutes in front of a crowd of people is the best illustration Jesus could give of why he had come from heaven to earth. The crowd moaned, but Luke 19 verses 9 to 10, Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham, for the Son of Man came to seek and save what was lost. There's such irony here. Zacchaeus was found. So where does that leave the people who distanced themselves from Zacchaeus? It leaves them lost. See, their grumbling about Jesus' choice of Zacchaeus proves them too arrogant to accept the basic reason for Jesus' mission. See, Jesus picks the despised town bully in order to send shockwaves through the rest of us. He wants us to realise that unless we admit that we are as lost as those we consider the lowest of the low, we really are lost. So no matter how long we've been following Jesus, we can never say to ourselves, God must be so pleased to have me. What a scoop, an asset I am for his team. But for Jesus, you and I would be as lost as anyone. Others might be watching this with the uncomfortable sense that you have still not been found. Well, Jesus is, as it were, on the end of that rescue rope, summoning you out of the water. He says, welcome me today. I will save you. We will leave the lost life behind. So perhaps after you've watched this in quiet prayer, you could go away and admit that without him you are lost, and you could accept his summons today.